What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be talking about something that every controller player seems to ask about at some point, or at least think about what they should play on, and that is going to be which input curve is best between linear and exponential. If you guys were unaware, the bottom of the advanced controller settings, there's two choices for your look input curve, linear and expo, and this just completely changes how your sensitivity feels. So we're going to be going over that in today's video and hopefully helping you find out which one is best for you. And I say that because there is no best choice. It really depends on your preference, your playstyle, and which game mode you play. But if you guys do find this video helpful or informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and comment down below whether or not you play on linear or exponential. So the way these terms are set up is they're just terms to describe mathematical functions. So like the easiest way to describe this is just to show graphs. So this is an exponential graph here. You see it starts out kind of slow and gradual, but it does eventually get there. So that is basically how your sensitivity will feel. When you move your stick, you'll get a slow gradual increase until you like ramp up into your max sensitivity. Whereas linear, this is a linear graph here, is very direct and very just straightforward. It increases rapidly, and this is really going to affect your sensitivity. It feels like your sensitivity increases much faster, and if you're new to it or when you first switch to it, it feels like it's uncontrollable and it just makes everything feel way faster. And you might be asking yourself, why would you want your sensitivity to feel fast and uncontrollable? And that's mainly just because of the nature of Fortnite with building and editing. So the main advantages of linear are going to be things like building. It makes your building feel like faster and more fluid. Editing feels a lot more faster and fluid. With these actions, you're kind of whipping your crosshair all over the place, and linear really aids for that. And I feel like some shotgun flick shots are also better on linear, but that doesn't necessarily mean that shotgun aim is necessarily better on linear. It's just if you're in fights where you have to make a quick adjustment really fast, then linear kind of helps, like goes better with that. And once again, the main reason why you would need to do that is if you're making an edit play on somebody, or you're in the middle of a build fight. If you're in a really complicated fight, you might have to like adjust your crosshair rather quickly and make a large adjustment fast. So linear is typically seen to be better for things like building, editing, and pump shots, pump flicks. Expo is typically going to be seen to be better for making small adjustments because we had that slow ramp up time with our sensitivity. If you're fighting long range, you can make small adjustments really easily, and this is something that is way harder on linear. If you're fighting somebody like 50 meters away and you're using something like the hammer AR or the ranger AR, it can be very difficult to make the small adjustments needed to hit those shots, especially with aim assist lacking at those ranges. Linear is pretty hard to use, but with the addition of the first-person assault rifles, I feel like linear indirectly got a huge buff because using something like the AUG or the MK7 at long range, you're able to easily still make like those small adjustments you need to make on linear. It is less convenient than on Expo, but you can get the job done. Whereas if we went back to like an entirely third-person AR meta and there was no first-person ARs, I feel like linear players would struggle more than Expo players would, just because it is way harder to use third-person weapons at longer ranges than the first-person weapons on linear. So the main advantages of Expo are making those small adjustments long range and to an extent tracking at longer ranges. The main advantages of linear typically seem to be like better, faster, more fluid building and editing, as well as pump flicks. And so this will really just come down to what game mode you play, I think. And this isn't guaranteed, but I feel like if you're someone who only plays build mode, linear is better. Exponential is still fine, and there's insane players that play Expo, but I think for most people, linear is going to be better for build mode. And if you're someone who only plays build mode, you're probably going to want to play linear. If you're someone who only plays zero build, and you don't care about building ever, all you want to do is play zero build, it's probably going to be easier just to play Expo. Expo is something that feels natural to a lot more players, whereas I feel like most people, when they switch to linear, it feels really bad at first and they have to put the time in and practice in creative. Whereas most shooters are Expo by default, and most shooters that were in years past were just strictly Expo. I feel like being able to change our look input curve is like a fairly recent thing with gaming. So if you're someone who only plays zero build, you might want to go with Expo. The main advantages of linear lie in build mode, and sure, shotgun shots are important in zero build. That's not like incorrect. Shotguns are important, and I know I said earlier that shotguns tend to be better on linear, but that's because of the type of adjustments you need to make in build mode. I feel like in zero build, people aren't doing as much in terms of just like being crazy in a fight with building, and you aren't doing as much in a fight. Most fights tend to be a lot slower and more predictable in zero build, so I feel like you don't need to make those large flicks as much, and that's why I was saying before that it's not just like a guarantee that linear is better for shotguns. It really comes down to the nature of the fights, and I feel like in zero build you get less of those fights where like you need to make a big flick quickly. So I think if you only play zero build, Expo is probably better. If you only play build mode, linear is probably better. And if you play both, it really depends what you're more comfortable with. It's not like it's impossible to use one in the mode that it isn't best in. Like I play linear and I play zero build a lot, and I do fine in zero build. And I know a lot of linear players who do fine in zero build, but it's mainly people who play both, and going back and forth between the two input curves would be weird. So they just stick with linear all the time because that's what they're used to. And the same could be said for Expo. You can do good in build mode with Expo, but I feel like if you only play one mode or the other, the choice is easier. But it really just comes down to you and what you want to do. Linear is probably harder to get used to, and it's going to take more practice, but I feel like the ceiling is higher with certain things. Expo feels a lot more natural. There's less time to get used to it. It kind of makes aiming easier at some ranges, and I feel like it goes well with zero build. So that is going to be it for this video. I know it's confusing, and a lot of it just comes down to preference. There's no right or wrong answer. You just got to kind of look at the advantages and disadvantages of one or the other and make your choice. Once again, I feel like the main advantages of linear are building, editing, and shotgun flick shots. Just anything that requires a large adjustment quickly, but it could be harder to make those small adjustments on linear, whereas Expo is the opposite. Sometimes it feels a little bit too slow with building and editing, but you get that back with like long range tracking, and just tracking in general feels a lot more natural on Expo. And if you're someone who's used to linear and you go back to Expo, it feels like your crosshair just sticks on the person. I personally play linear. Like I said previously in this video, there's insane players on both. It's no right or wrong answer, and it really just comes down to preference. Let me know in the comments below which you play. And if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. I think a 0-point fish, I think. Low key? This kid's got the god rotates. I don't think anything's loaded. Okay, no, we're chilling. Would you guys take purple striker or blue prime? I'm just gonna stick with the prime. That's what I've been using for most of this match. But there would probably be times where I take the pump. I really don't know how I feel about striker pump versus prime, to be honest. I started using the prime a lot a few days ago. Yesterday we won like 10 games. Today we've only won 1, but there's like, I could have won the first 2 games I played, I think for sure. I think we got like 2nd and 3rd or something like that. Or 3rd and 4th. The prime is just such a joke. Prime feels inconsistent. Yeah, I think I agree. I think it feels really inconsistent, but the first shot is so just like busted that it might be worth dealing with the inconsistency. You know what I mean? Like, I would prefer if it wasn't in the game though. Even though I've been using it. Like, if they just vaulted it tomorrow and everyone had used the pump, like, I'd be happy with that. Never carry an SMG. Oof. I feel like even with the prime, you can't just go only shotgun. Or you can't just like... You can't just like sit there and spam it like how you can with an auto shotty. The range feels like shit on this prime to me. Like earlier when I was on that ramp, and then we were shooting down on that elite agent, and I only hit for 50. I feel like if I had the striker pump there, we would hit for like 80 maybe. Like the range on this is... It just does not feel as good. Ew, why is this in my inventory? What a beast. GG's. That's why I took all those cones there, bro. We just like limited his options so much there to the point where he's like eventually gonna fuck up. No crown again. I think the spread is wider on the prime. Yeah, definitely. That's one of the things that's nice about the striker pump, even compared to the old pump, is that the striker has such a tight spread. I feel like that really helps it be like a little more consistent, even though the gun is also like pretty inconsistent.